Hopkins, who is standing by in the city of Izmir, and Ali Mustafa in the southeastern city of Diyarbakir. Let's first go to Adis Tianshan, who is in Istanbul for us. Adis, good to see you. Of course, Istanbul, perhaps a surprise result for many, voted no, coming in ahead of that yes vote. What is the reaction from people in Istanbul this morning?
I would say there was a mixed reaction, Malene, looking at the result, as you rightly pointed it out. Istanbul wasn't one of those cities that had an overwhelming majority for either side. It was almost split down the line, half and half. We're looking at a 4.7 million for no, as opposed to 4.4 million for yes. So while there was a lot of celebration among the Erdogan and AK Party supporters, especially where we were yesterday, right in front of his residence in Üsküdar, there were hundreds of people who gathered to celebrate the final result, even though they were slightly disappointed because it hadn't achieved exactly the majority they expected, they hoped for, but still they thought this is a victory regardless, and they were dancing and chanting pro-Erdogan slogans all night long. As opposed to another neighborhood like Beşiktaş, for example, as you were saying earlier, some 300 protesters took to the street chanting anti-Erdogan slogans, and they were carrying flags with messages saying don't bow. Even though police was deployed to area, there weren't any clashes. We understand that the protest went largely smooth, and right now it's a brand new day here in Istanbul. So far things are looking calm, but as you can expect, half of the city is still disappointed and concerned, while the other half is looking at it optimistically.
And Adis, do we know now what happens next? Because it's interesting, looking through some of the wires, we've heard from the Deputy Prime Minister Şimşek, who says that President Erdogan has made very clear that there are no plans for early elections. So what is it that we can expect in the near future?
Well, we don't expect any drastic changes. So it's business as usual today on a new Monday morning. And in fact, even for the results themselves to be finalized, to be officially finalized, we're still going to wait for a couple of weeks for them to arrive from the higher electoral committee. Obviously, there's been some concerns by the main opposition. There could be potentially a recount of the votes. It's a right that the main opposition has, that they can ask this committee to do so. But once we have the official results, I think even then it's going to take years until this new system is fully enacted. And the president himself announced yesterday that it will only take place after the next general elections, the date for which he announced as 1st of November 2019. So we're looking at anywhere around 2.5 years until this new system takes full effect.
OK, Adis, good to speak to you. Let's go to our correspondent, Andrew Hopkins, who is live in the city of Izmir. And Izmir, of course, the city where the CHP, the opposition party, actually announced that they were going to contest the result. Overwhelmingly, the city voted no. What has the reaction been there this morning?
Well, Marlene, it's been fairly muted, as you might expect, for a city where 68% of the voters voted in favour of a no result in this particular referendum. As you mentioned there, it's the main city for the largest opposition party in the Turkish parliament, the CHP, the Republican People's Party. There were a few small isolated protests last night, but there were also one or two small celebrations as well, because the ruling party, the AKP, does have some small pockets of support down here as well. Now, I just want to show you a few of the front pages of the daily papers down here in Izmir, just to give you a taste of how the result of this referendum is being greeted. Now, the first paper I'm going to show you is a paper called Yeni Gün, which means in Turkish, new day. What they've done is they've got a fairly neutral approach here. They've got printed the actual result of the referendum, then underneath it says Türkiye'de yeni dönem, which means in Turkey there's a new era, a new period. Now, the next paper I'm going to show you is called 9 Eylül. That means 9th of September. And what they say on their headline is Muhur Tartışması, which means the stamp controversy. This is referring to the CHP's protest, which they say there are at least 1.5 million ballots in this process which were not validated properly. And the last paper that I'm going to show you is one called Haber Express, which is called News Express. They show a map of how people have voted across Turkey. The blue areas here on the west coast and the southwest coast here, that's where I am. This is where all the no votes were in a majority. And their headline says, Başkan haritaya dikkatli oku, which means President, look at the map carefully. So it seems that 2 out of the 3 main newspapers down here in Izmir are seriously questioning what happened yesterday.
OK, many thanks for that. Andrew Hopkins there in a rather windy-looking Izmir. Let's cross to our correspondent Ali Mustafa, who is in the city of Diyarbakir. And Diyarbakir, of course, is a city dominated by another opposition party, the HDP party. So, Ali, Diyarbakir voted against changing the constitution. But interestingly, the yes vote did do surprisingly well in some pockets. Can you explain to us what happened?
It is an interesting result here in Diyarbakir, Marlene. The HDP, which in the last election held in November 2015, garnered 70% of the vote. In this election, that's remained almost similar. It's about 67% for the HDP. The parties which were backing the Yes campaign have garnered 33% of the vote in this referendum. In November 2015, their vote stood at 22%. In June of that same year, when the first round of elections was held, it stood at 14%. Why is this? Well, the HDP says it's not a level playing field. For the past year or so, the HDP says it has been suppressed. The campaigning for the referendum was muted on its part as well. Not many people out. And one reason for this is because a lot of HDP leaders are in prison. And they are in prison on suspicion and accusations of being connected to the outlawed PKK, including Selahattin Demirtas, the co-chair of the HDP. So they have their reasons. On the other hand, the Yes campaign led by, let's say, the AK Party and parties like Hudapar, Kurdish parties aligned with the AK Party movement, say that they have re-engaged voters in places like Diyarbakir in the southeast. They are trying their level best to now invest funds, pay attention to development, to the needs of the people in cities like Diyarbakir across the southeast.
OK, Ali Mustafa, many thanks for that. Ali Mustafa there in Diyarbakir.